So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Had Stepmom Otsutsuki God and Harem, so let's start the series. Everything that is apparent to the naked eye is destroyed, including the Titan's decision to stomp around recklessly, the Earth's scorching and continued smoke emissions, and the meteor's decision to drop, if a few massive craters that can be seen around are enough proof. Large, sharp boulders, each big enough to pierce 5 or 6 adult men, have taken the place of the trees that once encircled the region, which are now reduced to dust and splinters. If the crackles of lightning are any indication, the sky above itself appeared to have darkened as if it were seeing what was taking place below, but it was obviously an irate observer. Two things hovering in the middle of this chaos. One was a 2-meter-tall woman who wore a loose, huge kimono with magatama designs that covered her entire body, from neck to foot. Her skin is cloud-like in its whiteness. With the exception of the crimson third eye with 7 rings in the middle of her forehead, where a Tomo symbol is observed moving hypnotically between the rings, her hair and eyes are both white. At the moment, this woman has a cold, evil, and gloomy aura that could make anyone, even gods, shudder in fear. The woman on the other side of him is not at all like the second creature. With his robe shining gold like a fire and his golden hair flying in the wind, his appearance alone most likely resembles a little sun. Except for the black crescent moon symbol on his left backhand and the white sun symbol on his right, he has seal markings and magatama symbols all over his body. Behind him, 10 black balls of utter destruction loom. Just a glance would lead any sane individual to believe that he is a god sent to Earth. His whiskered features and cross-shaped eyes are still full of kindness, yet he is only 16. The woman was obviously not even tired, and the teen was already panting heavily, but they were just staring at each other at the moment. The teen's supposedly slightly tanned skin tone was getting lighter by the second, and his horns from some of his hair bangs were slowly falling down. As they gritted their teeth, the teen's only thought was, chow. For as long as he can remember, the golden, surrounded youngster is aware that he has already fought the goddess before him for 7 consecutive days without eating, sleeping, or drinking. He understood that his body could no longer bear the effort, even though the other person had called him a stamina freak. He wants to joke that this is what would happen if he didn't eat any ramen for a long time, even though he knows he can't right now because of his current situation. A week without ramen is lengthy to him, regardless of the other side. Since his power is truly divine, he just concluded 7 days ago fighting the one who can easily wipe out all of humanity, who can call forth meteors with simple hand signals, and who can declare himself a god and get away from it. Of course, the golden-haired child was not fighting that man alone. Rather, he was engaged in combat with thousands and thousands of willing-to-die Shion and Jabi. As they died, they were once again referred to as God. Thousands soon become hundreds, and a coalition almost prevails in the conflict. A sudden mass of will-given consciousness known as Black Setsu stabs the god in the heart. Remarkably, this action transforms the god of man into the mother of all core energy, the Otsutsuki god clan. She regains power and, after being sealed for thousands of years, comes back to life, easily crushing the man's will. All living things were then trapped in an endless delusion as everything started to descend, and the Otsutsuki god promptly unleashed Mugen Tsukuyomi. The only people still awakened by this are the youngster and his best friend, Naruto. So they got into another fight with her. Their ancestor, the sage of the 6th-path core energy, gave them a power boost along the way. That hope, however, is largely false because, at first, their mental assistant, their ancestor, the exalted sage of the 6 roots, gone caused his energy to linger in the mortal realm after it had been exhausted. His parting message is simple. You two must touch my mother, Otsutsuki God, with the yin and yang seals on your hands, respectively, in order to seal her. Easy, isn't it? No? Although the technique is powerful enough to destroy a sizable portion of the planet in a single blast, there is very little chance that it will be able to link it to her. This enables the current scene, when Uchiha, and Naruto friend, dies first from the ash-killing bone via his stomach. His spirit and body were broken in a few seconds. However, his left hand has a crescent moon sign, because Naruto's friend can transmit his best friend the yin, part of the 6-root core energy in a matter of seconds. He can't touch her at all since he got the moon seal, so even with another power boost, it seems like Otsutsuki God is tricking him. Instead, they just exchange techniques from a distance. Fortunately, after the 4th day, the child was able to cut off one of the woman's sleeved hands, since he killed Black Setsu inside right away. Despite its calls for help from its mother, the kid stabbed it through with a katana made of a truth-seeking bull. As she simply replaced her hand and kimono sleeve, Otsutsuki God herself did not even flinch, much to the teen's hidden dismay. I believe I now understand the issue, Naruto. A dark gritty voice sounded behind the teenager, now known as Naruto's head, yet it didn't worry him in the least. What's that, Kurama? Any preparations for Naruto at this time would be greatly appreciated, as he was conscious of his physical and mental fatigue. It's because you don't fully understand what your Uchiha friend gave you. Naruto said, what I want to say is that what he gave you is not simply the seal of yin and dat core energy, but everything, although he wanted to lash out at the obvious jab, knowing it wasn't the right time. Kurama sighs loudly inside Naruto mindscape, and sometimes the nine-tailed fox truly questions how Naruto, with his keen intellect, is still alive today. The phrase ignorance is a blessing is genuinely novel. Well, okay, Kurama, but how can I do that? When Kurama observed how quickly the blonde comprehended, it nodded thoughtfully at first. However, after the blonde finished her second phrase, Kurama smacked its own forehead, making a loud smacking sound that reverberated throughout the mindscape. Ignorance is a blessing is a great statement for the great Kurama, it was the biggest curse. Please try feeling it yourself. In contrast to Naruto, who is still a kid, at least to Kurama, Kurama is clearly not angry. Rather, he's irritated. Yes, that is the word used here. I'll try it, Kurama, so you don't have to sulk. It was clearly irritated with Naruto, though, as its huge humanoid front paws were flexed to the side, its eyebrow twitched here, and its bunny-like ears followed a little as if it had just woken up. Naruto's apparent meditative condition frightens Otsutsuki God, who can see him slowly closing his eyes. What is his present plan? After all, you can choose a great trick if you live as long as her. In contrast to Naruto's belief, Otsutsuki Didi was also worn out by their battle, but she was able to hide it successfully. Even so, she didn't move in Naruto's shape. Might it have been a ploy to attract her? Ninjas are inherently crafty, but Otsutsuki's god is secretly grinning, since she is aware that her grandson's reincarnate is not like that. She eventually realizes that his pure heart and generosity radiate from every part of him, make him a shining diamond in this otherwise gloomy environment. Additionally, for that reason, she would take him to the hereafter as swiftly and painlessly as possible, so he didn't have to watch her rid this world of its residents. Unbeknownst to Naruto, the Otsutsuki Didi fired Ash-killing bone to his head in a single blink, without causing any damage to his solar property, and a second blink later, it was just a hair's breadth away from his brow. Words could not adequately describe this. Swish. Naruto can easily evade Ghost Uchiha's actions, but now that his body is weaker and his core energy is already greater than the ocean, things are different. Additionally, because he is now preoccupied, he simply did not have time to reply. As Kurama takes charge of his body and moves with a fierce yell, help arrives. Aye. Unfortunately, despite his success, the ash-killing bone nicked Naruto's neck, resulting in some blood leaking out. Seeing this, Kurama growls mournfully and waits for the inevitable ending. 2 seconds later, Kurama blinked like an owl. What the devil happened? But when Naruto woke from his trance-like state and opened both of his eyes, he saw crimson eyes with black lotus-shaped orbs inside. Naruto knew exactly what had happened. His friend Naruto gave him the power of eternal Mangekyo red eyes. Each of his eyes dripped a tear of grief, and the transparent substance caught the Otsutsuki god's attention. Is Naruto in tears? Since he was obviously unaware that he had just been hit by one of her one-hit murder techniques, she may presume that he was too deeply in his trance condition. However, Otsutsuki god's breath almost caught once he looked into his eyes. What gave him those eyes? Because she can negate the Asura advanced body with her eyes, and just absorb the Asura core energy, she has no issue with it. Indra's eyes are also unaffected because she has the true final advanced state one in her forehead. But what if they were both combined? Minutes later, Red Eye's power would transform into Rinnegan if it were put in. She will look to be fighting her son Hagoromo if that happens. She sighed softly at seeing Naruto's current predicament and decided to finish it before Rinnegan woke up. She slightly clenched her teeth. Her eyes were able to connect with the current Mugen Tsukiyomi, allowing her to easily view the memories of every living person trapped in the illusion. This means that she has already seen Naruto's life from the viewpoint of all living things that remember him. Such kindness, to forgive the enemy. Such a strong devotion to always keeping his word. Such loyalty, to be loyal to a buddy even if they betray him. Last but not least, he was so gullible that he overlooked the love that was meant for him. Otsutsuki God wouldn't have the guts to cut even a single hair from his head, if he were that kind of guy. However, it was too late for Otsutsuki Didi to notice a fist that soared to her cheek. Boom. Naruto buries his fist in the tall goddess's cheek, causing a tremendous shockwave that silences the air. His eyes are deep purple instead of red, although they are identical to those of eternal Mangekyo Red Eye's power. Hoyaya. When the goddess launched her form, Naruto stood with his feet high, ready to axe kick her. She created a portal and entered this time, evading the kick that she knew would hurt, and the Otsutsuki Didi witnessed this. Crack. It was illustrated when the earth appeared to split in two, exposing a huge crater in the middle of which was Naruto's foot. Now that he can see core energy with his eyes, a shuriken fashioned like swirling core energy instantly materializes in his right palm. Futon. Rasen Shuriken. But the throw that makes the air around him feel as like it is hurting, Naruto launches his technique to his right, where he can see his adversary's shape emerge from another portal. When Otsutsuki Didi merely opened her palm forward, revealing another doorway, he was not surprised. He gulped his spirit art quickly this time. Pointless. Her speech makes Naruto quiver a little, and her tone is so strong that it actually caused him to bow to her. But Naruto, who is obstinate, would not do it. Instead, he uses a cross-shaped hand seal in his trademark spear dart. Cage Bunshin no spear dart. With a loud poof, 20 identical Naruto appeared, and they all began to rotate different kinds of core energy in their hands. Otsutsuki, who was aware of these techniques, wasted no time in firing the 19 clones with ash that resembled bullets, killing their bones, and making them disappear along with another batch of poof. Naruto, who was not even disappointed if he didn't show it, lowered his right palm to his lone clone, which subsequently gathered the necessary quantity of wind core energy. In order to balance all three, Naruto used a tiny quantity of 6-path core energy, which is still too strong for him to make anything happen. He then transmitted normal core energy and a sizable amount of Kurama corrosive core energy to his hand. Tensing every muscle in his body, Naruto cocked his hand back and shouted, 6-path art. Vermilion, before flinging his Rasen Shuriken. Spear dart. The god of Otsutsuki stood still, like a lighthouse in the darkest day, and the spiraling of death shot at him with one eyebrow raised slightly. In order to take in the spear dart, she then carelessly created a doorway in front of herself. Kamui. But this time, when the Kamui black hole swallows her gateway, the Otsutsuki god's eyes actually expand, if only little, in surprise. This one can overload her gateway because it is so full of core energy. A faint smile spreads across Otsutsuki god's face when she sees this Rasen Shuriken in 3 different sizes in red and black. However, there was a noticeable hint of sadness in this smile of hers. She cannot be harmed by her grandsons reincarnate so large on this fundamental level. Shrini. Buam. As hundreds and miles of the planet's body were destroyed by the process, a huge swirling dome of black and crimson was left behind, giving the impression that the earth itself was trembling. In the middle of this stands the Otsutsuki god, who appears to be uninjured despite her cells being destroyed so quickly. Naruto chewed his bottom lip to bleed in wrath, as his entire body started to shimmer for no apparent reason. Since Kurama is the first to voice concern after Naruto and Kurama plainly noticed it, most people are ignorant of this. Naruto, this is. The blonde's following words were nothing but nothingness, and he just gave a dry laugh, his legs buckling, as if he may collapse at any second. I just can't image her acting that way. It's not like anyone can see Kurama, except Otsutsuki god, of course. And it's not like she would make fun of me before killing me. Naruto never quits up, regardless of whether his body is shimmering, or the 6-path sage wants to deactivate. With a shaky finger, he traced blood in his lip, then pushed it to his wrist. With a poof, a single 3-pronged kunai appeared in his hand, its handle containing an intricate array of seals. He hasn't even accomplished this yet, for every trial only makes his clone body incapable of withstanding the pressure. Their bodies would still gleam just like his does now, even if they were successful. But what will he lose now? After all, extreme measures for a dire circumstance. Kurama, did you have any core energy for my hand? Since this is the last kit, you won't be able to seal her without any core energy, even if you manage to reach and touch Otsutsuki god. Kurama merely smiled pathetically and stared at his now fully shimmering kunai holding palm, as if ready to disappear from the world, and Naruto could see the fatigue in his voice. Well, at least I'll know that my last attack was successful, and that I touched her correctly if that happens. I can at least die smiling. Inside the spiraling red doom, Otsutsuki deity was strangely silent, staring at Naruto's figure with a sad expression, as if he could sense what he and Kurama were talking about. However, Otsutsuki deity is not heartless. In a normal situation, she would even send Naruto's soul privately to heaven. He eventually gives up and is ready to die. He knew he couldn't seal her without core energy, so she would at least grant his want to touch her with both hands, if only to calm his thoughts before he died. After hearing about a number of Iwa Shilo ninjabi who are imprisoned inside Mugen Tsukiyomi, Otsutsuki god learns that Naruto's kunai can be used for instant teleportation. She relaxes knowing that it won't even hurt her. So she waited. After a half-minute, the intense wind died down, and Naruto narrowed his eyes to see the Otsutsuki deity standing there, uninjured. Let's go, Kurama. This is our final shoot. Unaware that a goddess could read his deteriorating mental state with ease, Naruto's hand reaches out to toss the kunai. Because Naruto throws the weapon with the aid of Kurama core energy, the average person would only see a blur, such as a fleeting flash of gleaming silver before their head is punctured. For the goddess Otsutsuki, who is not your average human, this is a kid's game. If a person can achieve such fame by only teleporting, keep in mind that she has the ability to open the portal to any realm, and throw everybody within her line of sight into it. The slow kunai came closer, but she didn't move as she had said she would, and when it almost stabbed her shoulder, a weak gravitational pull made it hover inches from her kimono. Doesn't her grandson's rebirth teleporting in her direction suffice? Her question was addressed as she saw Naruto's form disappear in a flash of yellow, and then resurface directly in front of her, both hands grabbing. But what was that blur covering his whole body? His shape made Otsutsuki god grimace with minor anxiety. Reality itself appears to have rippled and curled like water. He seems entirely wrapped in solid illusion. At first glance, Otsutsuki God thinks Naruto's Asura form will be disabled, and his normal appearance, which she already knows from people's memories, will surface. She did not, however, genuinely think that her frailty would suddenly take the place of her grandson's reincarnation. His skin tone softened to a healthy pink-white, when combined with his now shortened whisker marks, giving him the appearance of a cute kitten. His blonde hair was finally gone, leaving him with snow-white hair that was groomed more subtly than his childhood Naruto friends. It lends him a little feminine quality when combined with his big, naive cerulean blue eyes. The blood twirling from her nose and her eyes staring blankly at the new shape of the former blonde made Otsutsuki God's brain freeze. Fortunately for her, Naruto had already used up all of his vitality. His body was exhausted from 7 days of battling, so he used what energy he had left to hold onto Otsutsuki God's kimono front in a lovely way. She could even see that he snored sweetly. The very word implies that the power to create everything is surpassed. And Otsutsuki God disregarded all of this overwhelming folly as she formed a big bundle of tissue. Without delay, she pushed everything into her nostril. Act like a squirt. These amounts are equivalent to the blood of 3 grown men, and the Otsutsuki God blood rapidly turned all of these tissues scarlet. If you lose that much, you're pretty much dead. Of course, other from Otsutsuki God. If she died this way, she would be in heaven, but let's face it, why should she? She can do something else, after all. In a daze, Otsutsuki Didi murmured, yeah, as she looked down again and noticed Naruto's adorable, cute perfect, Prince of Shota form make a cute little nose twitch. Even the strongest heart could be broken like a piece of dry paper by this incredible moment. Doki doki. By putting another big bundle of tissue against her nose, Otsutsuki God rapidly stained it scarlet from blood and almost died again, this time from a heart attack. FUMUU. This time, she didn't have time to prepare when the Albulo Ninja Shota snuggled into the stomach of Otsutsuki God, because she could feel his cute little head caressing her beneath her bust, and making a cute sound. Many liters of blood eventually gushed from the goddess's nostrils from overstimulation, knocking her asleep, and she draped the child in her big, sleeved arms in a possessive manner. Even though Otsutsuki God didn't actually experience it, anyone could tell by the way her eyes curled backward while wearing a silly smile, and the droll that slipped from the edge, that whatever was going through her mind might irreparably traumatize most children. In the middle of a pleasant room is a bed that seems casual but royal. Unaware of what happened during the 2 weeks while he was comatose, Naruto appears happy as he lies on top of the bed. With a dejected expression on her face, Otsutsuki Didi is playing with Naruto's smooth white hair, while seated in a chair by the bed. UNNNMM. Then the sleeping boy moved with a lovely, melodious moaning sound. The intense sunlight caused his stunning, cerulean blue eyes to flicker slightly as they opened carefully. Otsutsuki God's heart told her that there was a seductive movement, even if she couldn't see it. Doki doki. Even yet, Otsutsuki God's face stayed the same as she kept stroking the boy's hair, and periodically brushed her long fingers over his silky cheeks, holding back from kissing it. She had done it many times already in these 2 weeks, after all, along with other things. Yes, other things. After wiping the blood from her nose, Otsutsuki Didi shifted her focus back to the Albulo Ninja Kid who had caused her to experience this emotion. Naruto was starting to get his bearings. Although Naruto's body ached and begged him to stop trying and get more sleep, he ignored it because he was aware of his history of much more severe and perhaps fatal injuries. This kind of pain is nothing. With his eyes still unprepared, Naruto can only make out a faint picture of a person with white eye power eyes and whitish gray hair. Who are you? He asks. He speaks in a hesitant, slightly frightened tone, and he knows only one person with such features. The latter stems from his perception of his body as natural, which is detrimental to him. He had no idea how complicated his own spirit art was, as it was simply advanced henge spirit art, topped with multiple layers of endurance seals and Kurama's core energy, but he was sure that someone as powerful as Otsutsuki God would not even blink for such a thing. Even the spirit technique that Tsunade Bot-chan employed to hide her appearance is more advanced than his. Not just for her, but for everyone he cared about, including the Shiloh Ninjabi Alliance. Naruto's eyes pricked with anguish and started to build up with tears. He continued to refer to her as his mother, but in his mind she was his mother. Maybe because he was depressed, Naruto did not see that Otsutsuki God was staring at him strangely, and he did not comprehend it when his body was abruptly encircled by the tight embrace of Otsutsuki God. What Otsutsuki God tightened his grasp as he buried his head in her huge bosom, and breathed in her sweet vanilla scent, but all that came out of his throat when he attempted to ask a question was a cute little squeak. Blood was running down Naruto's cheeks, turning him scarlet from blushing, and despite his severe density, he still felt ashamed of his current situation. It's quite beautiful. It's okay. The Albulo ninja was comforted by Otsutsuki Didi, but Naruto quickly pushed her away, since he was perplexed and realized she was the one who was going to exterminate humanity from the earth. Didi, don't touch me. Despite his blushing face, Naruto's most profound mixed face is one of fragility and dread, which symbolizes his special and sensitive state, and is one of the reasons Otsutsuki Didi led him to push her away just now. Okay? Naruto trembles even more in fear at her monotone, icy, and heartless speech. Out of fear that she would hurt him if he ever lost her sight, he unconsciously wrapped a large blanket around his body in a cute hiding position. His wide, shaky blue eyes remained locked on Otsutsuki's deity form. The mysterious light behind her eyes will cause her to do something, but Naruto would not permit it, refusing to blink and maintaining eye contact. How long was I asleep for? Naruto asked, gulping in fear, realizing that he had never been good at traveling about, and that his only option in this body was to simply go brave. 2 weeks. Naruto's eyes were noticeably bigger and a little dulled from shock after 2 weeks without any Shiloh Ninjabi trying to save him, or if they did, they had already been dead. His mind began to wander, and each line of thought came to a conclusion with the same question. Was it a sign that humanity was already extinct? The idea sent chills down Naruto's spine in his most vulnerable posture. He opened his mouth to say again, but Otsutsuki Didi cut him off suddenly, because he realized that his thoughts were just that, thoughts. My person did not do anything to thou people, I believe we are stranded. Naruto initially fought the urge to smile and tilted his head slightly in a cutesy fashion, as a result of her speech pattern. He now knows how the others felt when he uttered his catchphrase, and it's hilarious to hear someone talk in such a strange way. But when the term stranded popped up, also in a normal sentence, Naruto stopped. As he looked at his enemy, his cerulean blue eyes became unsteady. Otsutsuki God's next comments were stern, fitting her personality. She spoke in a tone that was cold and harsh, but also tinged with hatred. We are stranded, in another dimension, which Naruto decided to ignore in favor of mentally repeating the words of Otsutsuki God. Instead of being on an island or in an unknown city, he is trapped in a completely new dimension, and although he was somewhat glad that the Otsutsuki God was unable to murder the others, he also felt a great sense of emptiness. Then, the query slips from his mouth. So why don't you take us back? The rabbit goddess shook her head softly, and his weak voice made her heart clench in pain. Naruto did not protest this time, because he really needed it, and Otsutsuki Didi gently pulled the albino ninja youngster into her body again, embracing him as though he were the most precious pearl she had ever had. Sob, sob. It started off as a straightforward sob and eventually evolved into a full-fledged cry of grief. Why? If Otsutsuki Didi decides to keep it a secret and merely comforts him in this way, she must have a reason for doing so and be unable to fulfill his request. Naruto didn't have a pipe dream, and his weak mind isn't understanding the reasoning behind her actions. Why? Naruto's cries were limited to asking for something that most people couldn't truly comprehend, but Otsutsuki's God is unique in that she recognized the boy's meaning. She didn't answer his question right now, since she didn't want her cute Naru to be broken, especially given his fragile state. Sleep. As Red Eye's power opened her forehead, a red inhuman eye gazed into Naruto's cerulean eyes, and his eyes lowered slowly, unable to stop it in his current state. She covered the boy's cute nude body with her long sleeves, carried him in a bridal style, rocked him gently, and when the boy eventually fell asleep in her arms, Otsutsuki Didi sighed quietly, so controlled that it was hardly non-existent. Naru was both thrilled and sad because, maybe because of his depression, she didn't realize he was naked. She is clearly happy that he showed her that lovely figure, but she is dissatisfied that he did not get upset and cover himself with more sheets, at which point he would have said, "Why you be baka, don't look at me," and no. It's embarrassing. She worried about her Naru's emotions, but honestly, she didn't care about the core energy thieves he was interested in. Fortunately, she chose this particular world, so he cannot go back without running into that entity. She didn't need any monkeys, Naru. He also didn't need those so-called tailed beasts. She can make him happy by herself, just the two of them, so they best wish they hadn't met her if there was any pest about. Naru really needs to think about how to make him happy, now that she knows there isn't a tailed beast in his stomach anymore. Maybe he would kiss her after that. As Otsutsuki God looked at Naru's lips, those beautiful, soft lips that sometimes brush against the garment covering her chest, she blushed a lot, and her breath began to catch. Pause. Heaven, far above. My lord, I believe we should face this newcomer face on and observe whether they are malicious or not. Beside a golden royal throne, an armored guy stands, his face and full body covered in gold armor. Behind him, 6 sets of feathery wings can be seen, their golden gleaming solely illuminating the room. He also addresses the person holding the throne with similar reverence and regard. But for a few seconds the guy on the throne was silent, and a thick veil of silver light covered his whole body. Is it truly what you felt, Metatron? Or is it your fear that forces you to say something like that? When he who sat in throne of heaven talked to the armored man, now known as Metatron, he did not even blink, but he is positive that the mere sound of his voice made his light hum with delight. Yes, my lord, because for another god to just decide to stay in that place that is part of your domain, is an insult in the highest degree. After then, the light on the throne of heaven makes a sound that sounds a lot like a sigh, but Metatron isn't sure if it's a good or bad thing. Metatron, you are one of my most loyal subordinate, so for now just trust me and don't do anything that can make these two entities angry, and if not for me, do it for your own life. Despite his disapproval of the directive, Metatron placed his palm on his own breast and nodded to his lord. Yes, my lord. Pause. A further 2-week time lapse. He is a heavenly entity. Although Naruto keeps saying this to himself, he doesn't actually enjoy it, not in this manner. The core energy of the Kyuubi and other tailed monsters mysteriously remained inside his stomach, even though Kurama is no longer with him. Otsutsuki Didi also calmed down and shifted the topic whenever he asked her a question. So questionable. Without any conscious control, they simply exploded out of his body. The core energies would have killed a normal human in some situations, but as he is a full sage of the 6 paths and has some help from Otsutsuki Didi, they reinforced his body by inundating it with a combination of 9 core energies. To put it briefly, he is the Jubi, the primordial tree deity. Naruto sensed that power throbbed hard from every vein in his body, waiting to be unleashed, even yet he felt powerless at his own inability to return to his home, his own dimension. What if he becomes divine? If he is now what many of his former enemies wanted to be, what difference does it make? In all honesty, he would sooner die than miss this wonderful time spent with his husband, friends, and family. He loved his family more than other families, even though they were not blood relatives, because they were his mentors and helped mold him into the strong young man he is today. His precious people, his pals, were too numerous to count, but he always treated them as one, particularly after the war started. They supported, argued, laughed, and wept with him, and they accepted him for who he truly was, not for what other people had said about him. Last but not least, he changed his people, the same people who had scorned, scowled, rejected, and ridiculed him in his dream and in all he did. He could sense their amazement as they gazed at him with each step, their fear turning to admiration, and their hatred to love. It was nice. He recognized that his ambition had already come true, and that everyone in Hyde Ninja Village and across the nation respected him for his power, charisma, perseverance, and most importantly, his hard work, not because he is greedy, conceited, or anything of the sort. But everything, even everything he has won with pain and tears, has disappeared in an instant. Sitting in the window of his and Otsutsuki God's tiny house, Naruto closed his eyes and used his fingers to trace the Horatian kunai. She was incredibly helpful to him over these 2 weeks, and as he got to know her, she was quite friendly to him, according to Otsutsuki God. As Naruto remembered how she had embraced him when he woke up 2 weeks earlier and had murmured many lovely words in his ear, her callousness even eventually disappeared, and his face lit up with a cute blush and a ghostly smile. I'll keep you safe. But now that he thinks about it again, Naruto remembers feeling something grab his butt, which made him blush even more. I guess it's just his imagination. Overall, Otsutsuki God is showing how much she loves him. She didn't make fun of him and even ignores his physical state, which makes him happy. Maybe this is where he may live happily after all. Pause. Later. To his discomfort, Naruto is sitting on his bed with a loose-collared pure white kimono that partially exposes his baby soft pearly white skin. Since he was a deity, he didn't really need to eat, but the more powerful a deity was, the closer they were to their home realm and his imagination. The latter is more important since it gives a god authority over their domain. For example, light can be shaped into a beam, spikes, pillar, sword, spear, or just burst into illumination. Fire may be controlled to produce a scorching heat that spreads, or a small laser that can penetrate almost anything. The person who becomes a deity has a defect in their imagination, since they are always thinking that they need to eat to stay alive. All deities have the ability to use their imagination to affect many things, but they can also control their own bodies, which they may do harm if they are not careful. This is also the reason why Naruto is currently sitting on the side of the bed being fed by Otsutsuki Deity using a spoon. Naruto said, Otsutsuki God. As he peered nervously at the spoon the goddess was holding. Naruto felt worried due to reason, the amount of vapor coming from it alone, and the heat he was already experiencing. Yes? She said innocently, tilting her head as if she weren't already feeding him the most delicious thing he had ever seen. Slowly, like a mild fire freshly started, Naruto's face flushed crimson, a weird feeling he had never had in his fake body. Being timid. A feeling of self-awareness surfaced when his body was totally exposed, and shyness ensued. His lower lip was bit as he murmured, Otsutsuki God drooled more inside as he fumbled out lines like I isn't that a bit too hot to bear. In response to Naruto's bashful reaction. Naruto reacts to his own catchphrases by making his cheeks redder after a brief period of silence. Then, as though it were a fascinating sight, he plays with his kimono while gazing into his lap. As soon as Otsutsuki Deity placed the dish on the desk, he grabbed Naruto by both shoulders and violently threw him into the bed. At first, her eyes took on the appearance of a ravenous predator. Unexpectedly, Naruto squealed in a familiar way. Yep. Unfortunately for him, Otsutsuki God was not deterred by cute ninja's comparable screech. She entered the bed and began to straddle Naruto's waist, which actually made things worse by making his face crimson and her breathing erratic. Otsutsuki God. What are you doing? She placed her sleeve-covered palms on Naruto's left and right cheeks, respectively, and then kissed him on the lips. Naruto lost consciousness due to the suddenness of the situation, if not the concern of why she would do this. He was unable to reply, though, since the tongue of the Otsutsuki God noticed an opening, and decided to go straight into his mouth. Ah. Right in the face, the albino ninja guy yells in amazement and pushes the goddess away from his body, and the goddess has a repulsive grimace, since she is rejected from the sweet hole that is her narrow mouth. In just one more second, she will be able to taste the nectar because she is so close. Naruto blushed and caressed his own lips, unaware of the current thoughts of Otsutsuki God. To be honest, he had a good time for the first time, with a girl who didn't try to kill him. Her lips are so soft. As Naruto thinks so, a lot of steam is leaking out of his brain, attracting the attention of the Otsutsuki God. The recollection of her adorable narrow moment was then smoldering in the back of her mind, as she activated her Rin Red Eye's power. She occasionally uses this to masturbate. Phew, aauuu. While Otsutsuki deity committed the image to memory, Naruto, too embarrassed, finally passed out, his face so red that it could have turned the faces of cute ninjas pale. The goddess had a fleeting thought of raping the youngster while he slept, but she quickly suppressed it. Only with his consent and not right now, when he isn't even used to a simple embrace, will she rape her cute Nair. Even after being kissed, he passed out. The Otsutsuki God, however, is patient since it will result in a more fulfilling reward. Maybe she should show her Nair dinner before he wakes up for the time being. Otsutsuki God, can you now tell me honestly why we can't go back to our dimension? Face stiffened, which made him more cute in his Shota form, Naruto stared up at Otsutsuki deity, who, for whatever reason he did not know, had her horns and Rin Red Eye's power out. When he asked, she merely replied, to commit the world's cutest sight to memory. He just left her alone after that. He waited until Otsutsuki, who had buried the memory of her adorable serious moment with Nair deep in her mind, sighed softly and looked down into Naruto's eyes with a hint of doubt. At this time, Naruto flushed, embarrassed that the Otsutsuki God had given him that name. The closest person in the past had been Cute Ninja, who dubbed him Naruto-kun when describing him, but this was the first time he had ever been called that lovingly. I really don't want you to do something that is suicidal in nature, she stated. Naruto felt a familiar warmth in his heart, but he also arched an eyebrow at the obvious lack of faith in the Otsutsuki God. He still views her as a friend in spite of this. In fact, he has already forgiven her for her past behavior, and now considers her a friend. Ultimately, if he can pardon Nagato for the deaths of many of his loved ones, many of the residents in the Hyde Ninja village, Itachi for the murder of his own clan, and the destruction of his best friend's life, Tobi for the murder of his parents, Kurama for the murder of them, and his many former adversaries. To put it simply, Otsutsuki, the god who killed only one of Naruto's friends, is more tolerant than that. However, he dislikes being underestimated in this way. If the matter is very big, he will never tackle it head-on. He's more intelligent than that. Sincere. Otsutsuki God eye. Naruto pouted as cutely as he could, his eyes changing into a look that made Otsutsuki God twitch, making her want to crush him into her bosom, rather than out of terror, as he yelled, Ki. She battled it like an expert. Okay then, but I want something in return. Naruto's attention was drawn to Otsutsuki God, who said that with an extremely serious expression, more so than when she faced him, and his physique practically emanated the aura of an experienced leader. That's reasonable, I suppose, but what exactly do you want, Otsutsuki God? You know you don't have to do this to ask me anything. Here, Otsutsuki God confused Naruto by shaking her head. No, my Naru, you won't do it if I simply ask. Naruto pondered what she desired with a cute little head tilt. Otsutsuki God's next words caused the tension around them to break like a piece of brittle glass, making it uneasy. What I want is a kiss on my cheek from my Naru. Naruto, who hadn't expected that one, did what he could in the situation, and his look went from serious to embarrassed. He shouted to her. Otsutsuki God ai. Pause. An hour or so later, Naruto sat alone in bed, taking in the knowledge that the Otsutsuki God had just given him. The existence that drove even the most powerful god to quiver in horror, to the point where they would sooner swallow their pride and kneel down to his slime than approach this creature. This monster, who now resides in the dimensional gap, the barrier he must pass to reach the elemental country dimension, is also notorious for attacking anyone who simply stares at it. Thus, the god of Otsutsuki was hesitant to travel back to their dimension. But honestly, Naruto thinks this is so cliched that it isn't funny anymore. Does God tremble in fear? PFFT, yes, exactly. However, it is not as though he will ignore the warning from Otsutsuki God. He would be annihilated in a second because he is only a newborn primordial god, but he might be able to survive for half an hour with Otsutsuki God. According to his perception of his goddess companion, she had just woken up and was unable to fully unleash her strength, so it seems that she was not really serious when she was fighting him, and only used 1% of her actual might. As a result, his pride falls and burns like dry paper. Knock, knock. You there? My Naruto flinched in astonishment about Otsutsuki God's query, then turned to face the bedroom door. The albino ninja boy stumbled out of bed and headed toward the door, his footsteps making a pitter-patter on the wood floor as he said, hold on for a bit, Otsutsuki God. Click. When Naruto enters the door, he sees the tall form of Otsutsuki Didi staring down at him with her white-eye power, her red eyes power reduced to a slit in her forehead, and her eyes closed. She had also lost her horns, which she concealed behind a posh exterior. Naru, I want my kiss, now. Muttered Otsutsuki Didi, his face solemn. For what he did not know, Naruto simply offered him a drop of perspiration, his eyes averted from the strange yet passionate expression of the Otsutsuki God, and his cheeks flushed slightly from shyness. When dense protocol occurred, Naruto hurriedly adjusted his body and blushed charmingly. GG's, Otsutsuki God, suddenly see coming only for tea that, it's not like as simple kiss from me is that nice, he said. Naruto gasped against her bosom, as Otsutsuki God also crushed her tall body against him, and gave her a redder appearance as a result of Otsutsuki God, forcing him against the wall. I want my Naru to kiss me right now. Naruto scared out on the inside, but he was also oddly reassured by her earnestness for a simple peck on the cheek. Otsutsuki God snarled, her face seeming to have a demonic quality. It was the first time he had ever felt so wanted by a person of the opposite sex. Oh, okay then. Her Naru had a lovely crimson face, his fist firmly, and cutely, grasped onto her kimono, and he was so shy that he began tiptoeing to get to her face, when Otsutsuki Didi spotted it. At this point, she had clearly already used her blessed red eyes power, for the photographic memory it offered, lowered her face slightly, and wrapped her long-sleeved arms around her Naru waist to pull him in, her eyes focused on her Naru's face, especially those pink luscious lips that would soon be velvety touching her cheek. She shudders with delight at the mere thought. Naruto's lips were only a hair's breadth away from her cheek, but she was already soaked from the intense warmth of his breath caressing her skin, so Otsutsuki Didi waited for a few seconds with hung breath. Knock, knock. There's a knock on the front door, Otsutsuki God. Let me answer it, Tabeo. There was a knock on the front door, just as Naruto's lips were about to touch Otsutsuki God's cheek. Naruto's eyes brightened in anticipation, and he jumped out of Otsutsuki God's arms and ran to the door like a very attractive kitten that had found something new. I'll be right over. The chamber was filled with such deep intent that Otsutsuki God's eyes, which had been silent at first, suddenly turned bloodthirsty. She also had a killing intent that would have fainted a lesser god. In the name of the moon, who would dare Naru to stand in my way? As the goddess's red eyes power whirled ferociously in her forehead and veins bulged near her white-eye power, a grey shore of death began to permeate her body. She will destroy something or some god, so someone is wasting their time by keeping her from using her Naru time. Pause. With Naruto in the backyard. As for the albino ninja kid himself, he is currently squaring off against a man who is slightly taller than ordinary. In Naruto's own words, this dude is incredibly unique. To begin with, he was dressed entirely in white, with the exception of a few places, such as his mouth, neck, and hands. His nose and eyes were concealed by a white mask, but a hole in the mask revealed blue eyes with a white cross in the middle. The male has white hair, however unlike Naruto, who has pure white hair, the male is metallic silver. Lastly, his back displays 12 pairs of brilliant gold wings, each of which has a feathery shape. He also had a purity about him that made Naruto smile somehow for this unique man. However, Naruto can sense the manly melancholy and suffering, the sorrows in every strand of his body, despite that innocence. Yes? Can I help you? Luckily, the man only gave Naruto a gentle smile as he welcomed him. Naruto was flushing since he was unsure of the short man's reaction. Greetings, you can call me the biblical god. The male tone was tinted with pride, clearly for his rank, and Naruto grinned a little. Excuse me. I said you can call me the biblical god, little hatchling. The god before Naruto gently arched an eyebrow in contempt at the blatant show of arrogance. But the biblical god relaxed his face and grinned charmingly, puffing his chest inward. In his mind, this is going to be easy. Naruto then spoke the words, bridged that thought as fast as it came. And why should I care about that? Oh biblical god. When he first uttered his title, the god gave Naruto a strange look, as though this was the first time he had ever encountered someone who had not responded. Even gods from different factions can recognize him, after all. Furthermore, Naruto's title was set in an odd way that made him feel a little irritated. The god, however, looked down for a few seconds before giving in. Always my name, and 'tis my pleasure to meet you. The god bowed softly, wondering if he was wrong, that the god in front of him was not a primitive hatchling but one of them. Naruto actually blinked when he gave him his name. Well, that means he just miscalculated this Yahweh. My name is Naruto, it's nice to meet you, Naruto said softly to Yahweh after the war, when he was more reserved. So why is a god coming here for anyways? Was the god's response. When Naruto inquired, Yowa bowed slightly lower than usual because she knew that asking something out of the blue was already considered rude. I want to ask you a favor. Naruto groaned to himself. If Yowa was as bad as he first thought him to be, he would actually hurl him out of his front yard, god or not. But since Yowa asked him softly, Naruto can at least try to listen to him and be more courteous. What is it? I'll consider it after I heard your favor. Yowa straightened up here, his eyes narrowed under his mask. Yes, that is understandable. I'll begin then. Firstly, I hope you know that this ground that you use as living ground is a battleground. What? Yowa continued after observing that Naruto's eyes dilated in shock at this moment, and deducing that the primal was not aware of it. I see you don't know about it, but it's understandable. For your information, since you live here all three sides have become silent and afraid to move. They obviously notice the power you possess. The biblical deity recoiled within him as Naruto processed all of this, and then met Yowa's eyes with his own, which are filled with the experience of war veterans. Tell me your point. Yes, I wanted to ask for your help, so this place could become neutral if any of three side become more daring, make it so no one could fight here. When Yowa says so honestly, Naruto can feel the sadness in his eyes, as though he already had too much on his plate after losing so many of his underlings. Comparable to his feelings before facing Ghost Uchiha. Come. Naruto ultimately decides after some deliberation, but he needs all the details, so he waits for Yowa to bump fists with him, while holding his right hand in front of him. To get Yowa to lift his eyebrows curiously. Murmuring, "Just bump your fist with me," Naruto arched an eyebrow. Yowa was first wary, but he decided to put his trust in Naruto, after noticing that his eyes were devoid of malice. His fist is bumped. Sweesh. Right away, a weird energy entered his body, accompanied by a pleasant pure feeling that was also tinged with unhappiness and sadness. He always saw that this energy had moved in a manner that appeared to be attempting to speak to him while he was waiting, but Naruto had already withdrew his fist, cutting off their energy exchange, before he could hear it. Unlike Yowa, Naruto already knows the whole story, which is that the three groups, the angels, fallen angels, and devils, have been at odds for hundreds of years. Since anyone with supernatural powers could sense their strength at the primordial level, no one dared to leave the location where he and Otsutsuki deity now live, which acts as their main battleground. The god in front of Naruto still harbored feelings for his children, who had already become devils and fallen angels, and he did not appreciate this war. Each fight claimed the lives of too many people, and he no longer wishes to lose any of his children. I'll do what I can. Naruto said, with a slight smile, despite his initially haughty manner. It's refreshing to see someone like Yowa. There are just not many others like him. Thank you so much. Feeling that the primordial was being truthful, Yowa bowed to Naruto, a little confused. In fact, when he felt a strange energy at a place where fighting was going on, his first instinct was to identify it. He was surprised when the energy appeared to be a blend of other gods' domains, because, although being one of the greatest gods, he only used one domain for power, and essentially merely magic for another. But the baby in front of him appeared to be a puzzle. His body contained too many realms, constrained by his strong, if little, frame. One or two were believable, three were unusual but not impossible, but this child. Thunder, earth, wind, water, and fire are the five elemental kingdoms. It tells something that he has never experienced it in his life, and genuinely doesn't know what the nine unknown domain is. But he understands the essence of the last domain, basic annihilation. But rather than that, Yowa fears the last two realms, which he knows very well. One of them was the same as his own, a bright pure light that held the very flicker of creation. The other, on the other hand, experienced the opposite. Like his dark side, this domain is Omulo Ninjos but hateless. It is both different and the same. Yowa can only be stunned, mentally counting, when he sees that a single creature is holding 16 realms, something that has never been seen before. Fortunately, this creature is pure and must have his reasons, even though he is currently a little depressed. With that as his last thought, Yowa teleported back to heaven, praying that the war would soon end without any losses on either side. Shiny. Yowa's mode of transportation made Naruto's eyes hurt for a short while, and his eyebrows twitched again. Why would he perform a basic teleport using such a big burst of light? He didn't know that any aristocratic devil who witnessed that big burst of light would be quickly killed. When Naruto no longer sees Yowa, he lets out a deep breath. Why does everyone continue to fight, whether in this new reality or his? Did they not see that fighting just produced misery and anger? He really doesn't see why conflict is so appealing to people. Given this, Naruto again gently closes the door to his and Otsutsuki god's small house, this time without making any noise with his footsteps. The Otsutsuki god was waiting for him when he walked into the bedroom. Naruto winced as she repeated that person in a tone that seemed pretty cold. Who was it near? And what did that person want? As he raised his fist to the Otsutsuki god, Naruto said, "Let me show you." Only a moment of silence was given to him before the goddess wrapped her long sleeve around his hand, and her actual hand seized his small fist, caressing it as though it were the most precious jewel. Naruto shuddered at the way she held his hand. What's the word inferring? The word merely came to him, therefore he was suggesting something he didn't know. Otsutsuki got grinned wryly as she gazed at her lovely Naru, who was bewildered by his own response. From the way they hold hands, it's obvious that she can read his mind. But she now had a clear understanding of their situation and their confrontations. Why has she never seen anything like this? Her Naru would now have to join this battle as the fourth side, and she was chid within for not even choosing a better spot for the two of them. That isn't feasible, no. Even if they fought in this world, she would not let any insect interrupt her Naru time, not even for a moment. He is hers. And anyone who ventures into this area will be killed by her. She will take care of that. The calm, soothing speech "I will take care of them" is intended to persuade Naru to concede and allow her to perform his duties. At first, she was perplexed by his adorable red face, but she later realized that their hand was still linked, indicating that he could hear her thoughts as well. It's not that she dislikes it, since every adorable moment of her Naru is valuable after all. My Naru, he's hers. The idea of the Otsutsuki god made Naruto more and more upset until he finally lost it and squeaked. Beep. Like a frightened deer, Naruto ran toward the bed and hid under his blanket, his cheeks burned pink. Behind him, the deity Otsutsuki looked at him with even more passion. He's just too adorable. As he made his way to the silverette under the blanket, the child let out a muffled squeal, and was glumped over the fabric covered by the Otsutsuki deity. Feeling the goddess's bosom at the back of his head made his face blush even more. The god of Otsutsuki didn't end there. As she held the unfortunate lad, his eyes half-lidded and his lips producing a weak, half-deviant sound, she began to softly stroke every area of his body with her hands, transforming him into a shivering mess. Hearing his low moan, Otsutsuki god kissed her lips delicately in desperation. Knock knock. As Otsutsuki god prepares to do more to Naru, they hear another round of knocks outside their tiny home. Naruto quickly breaks free from the blanket restraint, and makes an attempt to leap out of the clutches of the Otsutsuki god. That was his hope, however. A sense of sadness pervaded her entire body, and the third eye of the Otsutsuki deity was fixed on their guest in front of her and her Naru house, spinning hypnotically as though they were pleading with them to just go away. But since she knew Naru would be upset if she ever sent away a guest, she gave in and let go of her sweetheart. Let me. She still wanted to meet this guest with her kindest smile, so she did not let that stop her. Okay Otsutsuki god-chan. Unaware of her goal, Naruto smiled and allowed Otsutsuki god to greet their visitor. His faith in her made Otsutsuki god swoon on the inside, but she didn't pay any attention to it on the outside, as she just stood and walked to her front door, her movements light and fluid. As Otsutsuki god opens her front door, he sees the biblical god image looking at her with a worried look on his face. Then why couldn't he? He expected Naruto would come out when he knocked on the door, but he felt a chill go through him, and recognized instantly that the little primordial was not coming. She poses a threat. He tries to smile at this tall, gray-haired woman, without showing his nervousness when he first sees her. Yoa was going to ask if he could see Naruto, when this tall woman got ahead of him. What do you want? In addition to saying that he is not invited to react, the remark also suggests that Yahweh is not welcome here at this moment. Yoa did his best to keep a grin on his face, and made the decision to simply laugh and get away from this woman as soon as possible. I think I lost some of my properties in here, did you see them? No? With a roar, she and Naru's bedroom is where Otsutsuki god returns after slamming the door in front of Yoa's face. Unfortunately, she can already feel her darling is half sleeping, and she would sooner fight the death god than wake her. It's advantageous if he's sleeping because she can masturbate while admiring his cute face. With a youthful smile that almost exploded on her face, the moon goddess, Otsutsuki deity, moved excitedly toward the bedroom. XX. He was still standing in front of the door that had just banged in his face when he got back to Yoa, now peering at it strangely. He had never before been kicked out of a place like that. With a sorrowful sigh, he prepares to return to paradise by teleportation. He really just wanted to build a friendly relationship with the little primitive, and give Naruto something as a thank you for his good actions. At least there's always another time, so whatever. He always smiled and teleported back to heaven with a gleeful expectation.